This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Under increasing pressure, President Bush moved today to reduce some of the criticism about the nation's worst ever oil spill. The president sent top officials to Valdez, Alaska, for a first-hand look at the damage to see whether the federal government should now assume some of the massive and slow-going cleanup job. But Mr. Bush said the disaster didn't change his mind about oil production and exploration in Alaska. He's still all for it. This came as the Exxon Corporation oil slick spread its destruction throughout the rich marine and animal life of the Valdez area. Correspondent John Blackstone in Alaska begins our report.
Some islands in Prince William Sound are now islands in the midst of oil. Tides have carried the oil high, dumping it in pools. The slick has moved so quickly that crab fishermen were caught with their nets still in the water. Their catch had to be pulled up through the oil. The spreading slick has moved another 20 miles surrounding Knight Island, and the oil is threatening 3 fish hatcheries on Prince William Sound. The new priority for work crews is to save the hatcheries. The captain of the Exxon Valdez was questioned by investigators today, while new concerns were raised about his record of drinking and driving. His driver's license is currently suspended for drunk driving, the 3rd time in 5 years. More pumps have been flown out to the tanker to transfer remaining oil to a second ship. But still, new oil continues to leak slowly into the Sound. The slick just skirted a sea lion colony. So far, there is little evidence of widespread damage to wildlife, but the area is so isolated and the oil so widespread that assessment of the inevitable environmental damage is just beginning.
Sea ducks and alcids, which are like puffins and murres and pigeon guillemots and seabirds like that, predominantly in oil spills suffer the worst.
Still, today, there is little evidence of actual cleanup, and much evidence that the cleanup is in disarray. The effect of yesterday's wind is clear. Oil containment booms are scattered in the Sound, broken and useless, floating in oil rather than stopping its spread. For miles, these rocky beaches are stained with oil. Simply getting cleanup crews and supplies in place on these wilderness islands will be difficult. The cleanup task itself is daunting.
Wash it off the rocks into the water and suck it back up. And then you come along with rags and wipe it off the rocks.
The movement of the slick away from the port of Valdez allowed tankers to begin loading Alaskan crude again today. This rush to resume oil shipments comes in the midst of an environmental crisis of dimensions Alaska has never seen before. John Blackstone, CBS News, Valdez, Alaska.
After 4 days of slow and ineffective efforts to clean up the worst oil spill in U.S. history, President Bush today dispatched Transportation Secretary Samuel Skinner and a team of top officials to Alaska to assess the damage. But the president said the spill had not changed his support for oil exploration in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge.
They've been shipping oil out of here for a long, long time and never had anything of this magnitude or this concerns.
As the team headed for Alaska, it left behind a major political battle in Washington over the controversial proposal to drill oil among the herds of caribou and other animals that inhabit the wildlife refuge. Last month, the president told Congress that the nation's energy security requires the exploration of such oil and gas reserves.
And when those with the most promise can be tapped safely, as with much of the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge, we should proceed.
But today, galvanized by the devastation, environmental groups renewed their opposition.
Well, I hope the president will give it another look. There's no way to do this in an environmentally prudent way, which is the way the president said it should be done.
The Senate Energy Committee 2 weeks ago approved a bill permitting exploration in the region. But the oil industry conceded today that the Valdez spill has created a new obstacle.
Obviously, it will become more difficult to complete what we hope will happen, that is the opening of the Arctic Wildlife Refuge to oil exploration.
I don't suspect it will stop the legislation to open the Arctic Refuge dead in its tracks, but it certainly ought to put an end to the sort of gold rush mentality that the Reagan administration brought to us and that the new administration seems to be continuing.
One possible compromise suggested by the environmental groups: let the respected National Academy of Sciences decide whether the oilmen should be allowed to drill in the wildlife refuge. Terrence Smith, CBS News, Washington.
Surprise testimony from former U.S. Attorney General Edwin Meese today in the criminal trial of Oliver North. Meese apparently has changed his story, now claims that his main motivation in the initial investigation of the Iran-Contra wheeling and dealing was to spare President Reagan embarrassment or the threat of impeachment, not as Attorney General to investigate a crime. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver reports on Ed Meese under oath and in the witness chair.
Former Attorney General Edwin Meese testified today that when he conducted a presidential inquiry into the Iran-Contra affair, he was not acting in his official role as Attorney General, but as a friend and advisor to the president. Judge Gerhard Gazelle broke in. Are you saying Lieutenant Colonel North had no obligation to answer your questions? Meese replied, no obligation other than as a loyal member of the administration. There was no legal compulsion as there would be in a normal criminal investigation. It was a blow to the prosecution because North is charged with obstructing a presidential inquiry by making false and fictitious statements about the diverting of profits from Iran arms sales to the Nicaraguan Contras. Defense attorney Brendan Sullivan, however, got Meese to acknowledge that he wasn't really focusing on details of the operation when he questioned North, that in fact the whole inquiry was an attempt to save President Reagan from political embarrassment. Meese explained, I would say a policy had been exposed and we were trying to limit the damage. And Meese revealed today that the White House was so panicked that the president would be accused of covering up the diversion that he called a news conference even before any criminal investigation was launched. Sullivan asked, you were concerned that it could cause the possible toppling of the president himself. Meese answered, yes. Sullivan, you had to get it out the door first because it could possibly lead to impeachment by Congress. Yes, Meese replied, I believe I discussed it with the president and certainly with others. Meese will be back on the stand tomorrow when the prosecution is expected to try to get him to acknowledge that, formal investigation or not, Oliver North broke the law by lying to a government official. Rita Braver, CBS News at the federal courthouse in Washington.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, Barry Peterson on the Soviet election and profiles one Communist Party leader who ran unopposed and lost. And Betsy Aaron on a judge who says there was a slip between the cup and the ship.
At any given moment, there are thousands of planes in the sky all across America. At Raytheon, we've developed a totally new display, combining the fundamentals of air traffic control with the most advanced electronics to give the clearest picture of the sky ever put on a screen. To help keep the skies safer than ever into the next century, Raytheon, where quality starts with fundamentals.
How strong is extra strength Tums EX? Heartburn strikes, Tums strikes back. Heartburn's gone that fast. Tums EX, twice as strong, twice as fast as regular Rolaids.
No tough sinus cold is going to sideline these guys. Congestion, pressure. New maximum strength Dristan is tougher to sweep away congestion, pressure, and pain. And it won't make you drowsy. When you can't call in sick, call on Dristan.
Introducing Total Raisin Bran. Other Raisin Brans have only 1/4 as much vitamin nutrition. And eating a Raisin Bran with only 1/4 the vitamin nutrition you could get is like having Mount Rushmore.
Hey.
With only one president. New Total Raisin Bran is the only Raisin Bran with 100% of 11 vitamins and minerals. Total nutrition has finally come to Raisin Bran.
New problems for the troubled B-1 bomber tonight. The new and expensive long-range nuclear Air Force bombers built by Rockwell International have been ordered grounded for the third time. CBS News correspondent Eric Ingberg reports on the B-1 problem this time.
Her name was the Lucky Lady, and she was the best performing B-1B bomber in her group at Dyess Air Force Base until yesterday. Like all of the $280 million B-1Bs, the wings are designed to swing back and forth. But when the wing mechanism was checked as part of the routine pre-flight inspection, fuel ran out of the tank between the wings.
The third time that they swept the wings forward, a clunking noise was heard. They shut down the aircraft, and they observed the fuel leak.
The Air Force immediately grounded its entire fleet of 97 B-1Bs until it can find the cause. There had been a problem with the between-the-wings fuel tank in the predecessor aircraft, the B-1A.
And that was supposed to have been fixed with the B-1B by redesign, by better integration of the airframe itself with its fuel load capacity. So this shouldn't be happening with the B-1B.
The aircraft has been dogged by problems since becoming operational in 1986. In the last 18 months, 3 of the bombers have crashed. Fuel leaks played no part in 2 of these, but an accident last November in which a B-1B caught fire in the area between the wings raised concern there are serious problems with the plane's fuel system.
It is fair to say that the teething problems in this plane are taking a lot longer than in most successful procurements.
After the November 8th accident, the Air Force reportedly became concerned that there was a fleet-wide problem with the B-1B's fuel system. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
A New York judge issued an extraordinary ruling today, overturning the results of a major sporting event. Correspondent Betsy Aaron reports on the big reversal in yachting's big race.
Last September in San Diego, the moment of victory. Dennis Conner winning the America's Cup, the most prestigious prize in yachting, would stay in the United States. But today in New York, defeat when a judge ordered the San Diego Yacht Club to forfeit the cup to New Zealand because, she said, San Diego violated the rules and the spirit of the race and showed poor sportsmanship. Michael Fay, the man who built the New Zealand entry.
I don't think there's any doubt about what the cup means. And I'd like to think one of the tests for us is to put it through a regatta here in 1991 without a protest, without an argument, and without the lawyers.
The race pitted the Kiwis' 133-foot single-hulled yacht against San Diego's much faster 55-foot multi-hulled catamaran. The judge called it a gross mismatch. Most of the yachting world agreed, feeling that San Diego hadn't played by the rules, which in the past had meant that competitors used roughly the same type of boat. But that was before there was big money to be made, when yachting was a plaything of gentlemen.
I think where the San Diego Yacht Club got off the track was when they turned over the defense of the Cup to the Sail America Foundation, because the people behind Sail America were interested in using the event for personal monetary gain.
But there were some who felt San Diego acted within the rules.
I think it is very unfair to call them poor sports, because they did what Michael Fay thought he was going to do, and that is get one up on the competition.
In the new world of high-tech yachting, it costs at least $30 million to enter a yacht in the America's Cup. With all that money floating around, sportsmanship may be swamped. Betsy Aaron, CBS News, New York.
Financial serenity. It takes confidence. Control. Travelers has been delivering on this promise of financial peace of mind for 125 years. With carefully controlled investments, with insurance protection you can trust. The Travelers, you're better off under the umbrella.
In 1977, Charlie Ewell bought a brand new John Deere.
Can I drive it someday, Dad?
Someday, Tommy, someday. Years passed, and the John Deere was still running strong.
Can I drive it now, Dad?
Have to be a little bigger, son. Today, Charlie's John Deere still runs like the day he got it. Here's your big chance, son. Sounds fun, Dad. See ya. Which points out two things. You can count on a John Deere running for years and years. And you can count on being the one running it.
You've always trusted Woolite to care for your sweaters. Wouldn't you love to get that same Woolite care for your rugs and for your chairs? Well, try Woolite Deep Cleaning Rug Cleaner and Woolite Upholstery Cleaner. Trust Woolite Care for rugs and chairs.
See the colors of Puerto Rico, colors everywhere. Puerto Rico, the shining star.
Talk today of a new owner for Eastern Airlines, now 25 days into a crippling strike, a strike that has focused on the tactics and strategy of the present owner, Frank Lorenzo. Correspondent Mark Phillips is covering all the bidding.
From Eastern Airlines struggling to rebuild, an announcement today of a training program for new pilots in an effort to expand its skeleton schedule. From baseball commissioner and businessman Peter Uberoff, no comment on reports that he is negotiating to buy the bankrupt airline. From Eastern striking workers, increased hope that the airline will be sold.
Frank Lorenzo morally bankrupt. Frank Lorenzo spiritually bankrupt.
From the beginning, Frank Lorenzo, who owns Eastern through its holding company, Texas Air, has been the issue in this strike. In fact, he's been the issue at Eastern since he took over the airline in 1986, despite his conciliatory words.
The company. Eastern has a very strong group of employees, and one of the strengths of the company is its people.
Eastern's people, though, suspected that Lorenzo was a corporate raider in the worst 80s tradition, that he was out not to run an efficient airline, but to bleed it dry.
The bottom line is that those guys are crooks in there, and they don't care about anybody out here.
We believe that the evidence demonstrates that Eastern was not operated for the benefit of Eastern.
This is the workers' case, that when the unionized Eastern was acquired to join non-union Continental in the Texas Air tent, Eastern later had to borrow $200 million for operating costs. But $80 million of that was then loaned to Texas Air at interest rates much less than what Eastern was paying, a drain on Eastern. That Eastern began buying its fuel through Texas Air and paying a surcharge of $10 to $12 million a year, another drain on Eastern. That Eastern sold its valuable reservation system to Texas Air for $100 million. Industry analysts have said it was worth up to $350 million more. In all, Eastern's debt has increased by 30% under Frank Lorenzo's ownership.
It's a gambling casino kind of mentality that if he makes it big, and if he loses, it's mostly going to be other people's money.
In response to the charges, Texas Air says any bankruptcy examiner will find each of those transactions was justifiable and legal.
Whoever's appointed can go out and look at these transactions and determine whether they are fraudulent transfers or fraudulent conveyances. We want them disclosed.
For their part, the pilots confirmed to CBS News today that they have been talking to Peter Uberoff about concessions they might give him if he were to buy Eastern. The Machinists Union is said to favor selling the airline to TWA owner Carl Icahn. But the strikers' strategy is still to hold the line and possibly force the price of Eastern down to a point where someone, anyone but Frank Lorenzo, buys it. Dan?
Mark Phillips, thanks. The National Transportation Safety Board tonight recommended that 77,000 of the nation's school buses, more than 20% of the country's entire school bus fleet, be retired as unsafe. The NTSB also called for making school bus seat covers more fire resistant and installing more emergency exits. These recommendations were prompted by a school bus accident in Kentucky last year that killed 27 people.
Checking in.
We interrupt this transaction for a reminder.
So what's your approach?
There's one travel tip it pays to remember.
We've got one good option.
Choosing the card that actually pays you cash. Cash back for every charge. The Discover card.
Daddy loves you too.
Nice job, everybody. It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
4 years ago, I wound up in the hospital after I hurt my Achilles tendon in a basketball game. I hobbled around on it for a couple of days. The doctor told me I had to go to the hospital, and while I was there, the hospital gave me Tylenol. It worked great for me, and got rid of all the pain that I had.
Greg Denton trusts Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
I trust Tylenol because it's done the right things for me, and the hospital recommended it, so that makes me feel even better.
Now try new gelatin-coated gel caps, only from Tylenol.
You've been hearing a lot of news recently about the importance of including whole grain in your diet. But of these leading cereals, only one is made from 100% whole grain. Only Wheaties. So Only Wheaties gives you whole grain nutrition. And maybe that's why Only Wheaties has Michael Jordan. Better get your whole grain.
You better eat your Wheaties.
Police in Yugoslavia's southern Kosovo province shot and killed 12 more demonstrators today. This pushed the death toll in the last 2 days of rioting by the province's ethnic Albanian majority to at least 21, including 2 police officers. The rioters are protesting new laws that give the adjacent Serbian Republic of Yugoslavia more power over provincial affairs. Returns still coming in from the Soviet Union's election, more shockwaves rumbling. Given a choice for the first time, voters rejected at least 37 Communist Party leaders, including some officially in the government. Still, most of the Communist Party candidates won, and the overall results may give Mikhail Gorbachev more room to maneuver, a better, longer hold on power. Moscow correspondent Barry Peterson reports on why.
The Communist Party was licking its wounds today in unprecedented defeats that stretched to the ruling elite, the Politburo. The biggest loser, Politburo member Yuri Solovyov, running unopposed in Leningrad, where he is also party chief, rejected by those voting no. In the Ukraine, the hardline leader of the party was elected, but several of his top deputies were not.
It's voicing displeasure, dissatisfaction with concrete people, concrete bureaucrats, be they party or government.
Muscovites woke up to election results that showed top communist leaders in their city government, including the mayor, rejected or forced into runoffs. People don't fear things anymore, he says. It's got to help Gorbachev. Most observers believe Mikhail Gorbachev, who designed the elections, got exactly what he wanted. A public humiliation of party leaders around the country, many of whom are rejecting his calls for change.
Gorbachev stands no hope of implementing the economic reforms, which are the most important in some ways, unless people below in this system, down in the cities and the villages, can oust the entrenched authorities who are refusing to implement the economic reforms.
The defeats announced today are a direct challenge to the Communist Party, accustomed to complete control in this country, and it doesn't stop there. Arkady Murashev, who defeated the Communist Party leader in his Moscow district, was already talking today about the next step, a multi-party system that would further erode communist dominance. There were storm clouds gathering over the Kremlin today. The battle to make the party surrender its overwhelming power is on. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Moscow.
Setback for the Soviet space program today. The Soviets have now lost contact with the second of 2 robot spacecraft. They launched them last July to probe Mars and the Martian moon, Phobos. They lost contact with the first probe last September. The Soviets have been talking up the idea of possibly sending cosmonauts to Mars sometime early next century. Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini has purged another critic of his hardline Muslim fundamentalism. Khomeini today accepted the resignation of Ayatollah Hossein Ali Montazeri as his designated successor. Montazeri reportedly quit on Khomeini's orders. Montazeri favored a bit more economic and political liberty and last month criticized some Iranian leaders.
Ready?
In a minute, honey.
It's nice to be noticed for what you wear and how you look. And if you wear dentures, it's nice to know Efferdent freshens up dentures and cleans away stains so well. With Efferdent, all they'll notice is you.
We think the new 1989 John Deere walk-behind is terrific, but take it for a little test drive. Try it for a full month. If you're not completely happy, return it.
This is some offer.
It's some mower.
Came across country by wagon and settled in Amana, Iowa. Whatever they needed, they made by hand. Made it the best it could be. That same fundamental is still practiced today in Amana, Iowa, the home of Amana Appliances, a Raytheon company. Whatever you make it the best it can be. Raytheon, where quality starts with fundamentals.
On your path to success, reach for America's strongest financial helping hand, Citicorp and Citibank. More American families own their own homes and attend college with our help, and more get what they want with MasterCard and Visa cards from Citibank than from any other company. We also serve millions of customers in every major marketplace worldwide. Citicorp, because Americans want to succeed, not just survive.
For many elderly in this country, there's often not enough to go around, not enough income or proper food or decent housing. But as Bob Fall's investigation reveals, it now turns out that millions of elderly have too much of something, too much health insurance they don't need, sold to them by agents who, at a minimum, don't care.
2, 3, 4, 5.
As their days are winding down, many seniors have become victims of their own fears that medical bills will wipe them out and of unscrupulous insurance agents who prey upon those fears.
What they're doing is committing economic rape on these people.
People like 81-year-old Irene Graham, one of 5 million Americans who are paying an estimated $3 billion a year unnecessarily for insurance policies which duplicate one another.
It's very clear that large numbers of elderly citizens, frail, in bad health, badly frightened, and not too adroit in dealing with business, are being taken advantage of.
Irene Graham, for example, to pay medical bills Medicare does not cover, she was sold 17 policies for nearly $20,000.
I knew they were pressuring, but I didn't know what to... I couldn't handle it. And before I got through, I had more policies than I realized.
And what did Irene Graham get for all the premium checks she wrote to help insure her ailing husband?
The terms of his condition didn't fit with the terms of the policy.
So in effect, she got nothing.
That's right.
Despite having paid all that money, she got nothing.
Basically, that's it.
Some, like Irene Graham, complain openly, but others who have been bilked, like this 84-year-old California grandmother who spent almost $40,000 for 7 policies, are so embarrassed now they won't even show their faces.
We were victimized.
By someone who took advantage of your trust?
Yes. Yes.
22 million senior citizens own at least one supplemental policies, and experts agree one is generally sufficient. But millions more own from 2 to 8, buying excessively, say regulators, because they have become targets.
Some agencies operate on what they call a cookie jar basis. And the names of willing or easy victims are put in this cookie jar, and the agent comes in the morning and reaches in the cookie jar, and he's got his contact for the day.
You see, just one day in the hospital could cost you $520.
Then look how your costs can add up.
Television commercials like this one have frightened seniors so much, regulators in several states have tried successfully to get them off the air.
Come on in, sit down, and maybe you'll learn something.
Stung by criticism, the insurance industry has now prepared its own videotape warning seniors to be wary about some companies.
There are some that don't, shall we say, play by the rules. You don't say.
The industry also cites its own study, which found that abuses were few and far between.
Looking at the survey figures, we don't think it's quite so widespread as it was in the early 80s.
But the unscrupulous tactics have prompted Congress to take another look, and pressure to crack down to ban duplicative policies is building. Legislation, however, will not change the appalling fact that as long as seniors are vulnerable, someone will try to exploit them.
We should, I feel, should have perhaps been more alert, and we should have known better than to be so trusting.
So trusting, too many have learned a costly lesson the hard way. Bob Fall, CBS News, Petaluma, California.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, good night.
This is CBS.